Hey guys, Fat Rat here, and welcome to the second episode of Conspiracy Theory Saga. And in today's video we're going to be looking at the theory that the Titanic was switched with another similar boat called the Olympic. Also wanted to let you know I'm changing the format of the series, and we'll be looking at one theory per video rather than multiple, but I still plan to look at multiple theories on a certain topic, but just have them in separate parts. But yeah, that's really it, so let's just get into it.
Tell them keep up as a relay, do the Benz dirty on the E-way. I can sell a bitch on eBay, I can make this shit look easy.
The Titanic was a passenger liner that sank in 1912 after colliding with an iceberg on its maiden voyage. It was the second of three ships which were part of the Olympic class ocean liners. They were Olympic, Titanic and Britannic. It was estimated that 2,224 people were on the ship when it crashed, and it's estimated that around 1,500 people perished. For this first theory we're going to look at around the Titanic, it is called the Olympic switching theory.
Took a loss, had to bounce back. These niggas ain't thought that. Talk it down as.
This theory was first put forward by Robert Gardner in his book Titanic, the Ship That Never Sank. It points out many suspect events that happened in the months leading up to the fatal crash. He also points out the fact he believes that the ship that sank was not the Titanic, but actually its sister ship, Olympic. Olympic hit the water before the Titanic, but suffered the same fate with collisions, having two before the Titanic's maiden voyage. Its second collision was actually a crash involving another ship called the HMS Hawke, which caused major damage to the liner. Although many eyewitnesses say that HMS Hawke was to blame, ultimately the Olympic was said to be at fault. This ended up leading to the insurance company that insured the ship to refuse payout for the ship's damages. Having to repair the ship, it delayed the completion date of the Titanic, which led to a lot of financial loss for the White Star Liners company. Gardner proposes that in order to make sure the company had at least one liner in the water, the Olympic was patched up and converted to the Titanic, and that afterward the Titanic would enter the water as the Olympic after completion. He also claims that the damage they sustained in the crash was a lot worse than claimed, more likely to be a complete write-off. There's claimed that the reason that they went through with the plot to purposely sink the boat was in fact because White Star wanted the insurance payout of the Titanic for them to complete another ship to enter the water. It is suspect that the insurance policy was only carried out 12 days before its maiden voyage. The reason it is such a popular theory is because the ships, being sister ships, were very alike, and with a few changes such as the bell and nameplate, it would be easy to pass off the Olympic as the Titanic. Now we'll go over some evidence that can support these claims. During construction of the Titanic, in photos it can be seen that there was a total of 14 portholes and that windows were evenly spaced out, which when it hit the water it changed to 12 portholes and unevenly spaced windows, which was exactly like the Olympic. Also, after Olympic's collision with HMS Hawke, it had a notable list to port, which means it leant towards the port side of the ship. One of the survivors on the ship, Lawrence Beasley, stated that the Titanic listed to port. It was plain she did so, for the skyline and the sea on the port side were visible most of the time, and on the starboard, only sky. During this time period there was a massive coal strike, leading to thousands of firemen, boiler stokers and greasers being out of work. Despite this, the Titanic struggled to find staff for the ship, with many men refusing to work for any price they offered. It is claimed that rumours had spread amongst workers of Heartland and Wolf that the ships had been swapped and there was a plan to scuttle the ship for the insurance money. With the ship only being half full and many high-profile cancellations of the maiden voyage, begs the question, was this more of a widespread rumour than once thought? One of the cancellations being the owner of White Star's parent company, JP Morgan, which he claims was due to illness. A New York Times reporter later found out that this was not the case and that he was seen with his mistress perfectly well on the day that the ship had sunk. Also, a ship that was blamed for the amount of lives lost that day, the SS Californian, which was also owned by JP Morgan, behaved oddly during the Titanic's voyage. It was another passenger liner, but was carrying no passengers, and its only cargo was 3,000 woolen blankets and jumpers. The ship went to the middle of the Atlantic, then stopped and waited around 12 miles away from where the Titanic sunk. Edith Russell, a survivor of the sinking, claims that Titanic officers had assured her that the Californian was on the way. Gardner also claimed that the ship was sunk slowly by seacocks, which is a valve permitting water flow into a vessel, and that if ships were stationed close by, that there would be very minimal casualties of the sinking. One of the more controversial theories that Gardner put forward was that the Titanic didn't hit an iceberg at all, but it actually hit an IMM rescue ship with its lights out. He also claimed that the distress rockets seen by SS Californian were actually from the IMM rescue ship and not the Titanic, which could explain why they did not respond to the distress calls, because Californian was not expecting distress rockets but a rendezvous.
Brain, I keep the cheese in a mousetrap. Ravioli spilling sauce where your spouse at. I just hit the plug for the girl with that.
So basically, my conclusion on this is that it is a very plausible theory in some regards. Cause yeah, I reckon, well, I don't reckon, insurance fraud would have been much easier back then, just as any other crime. You know, it's a lot harder back then without the internet and all that kind of stuff to catch people doing this stuff wrong. So, you know, it just would have been easier for them to set this plan in motion and be able to, you know, claim their insurance money. And also, the Californian is a weird part as well, because why is a passenger liner just carrying 3,000 blankets and jumpers, and then they just randomly happen on coincidence to stop 12 miles away from where the ship had sunk? I don't want to say I believe that the Titanic didn't hit an iceberg, because that theory does seem a bit more out there. But then if the Californian was meant to stop there to help out the Titanic once they had purposely sunken the ship, then you would think that they would reply to those distress calls. But, you know, then that other ship theory does make sense to why they wouldn't, because they might have been expecting something different rather than them sending distress rockets to let them know that they needed their help at that situation. I would most likely say that this is a very, very plausible theory. Of all the theories I've read, such as the one we're going to be doing in the next video, you know, it is a lot more, well, probably the most plausible theory, and that's why it is the most popular theory. So thanks guys for watching. If you made it this far into the video, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you can boost up my self-esteem, and I'll see you guys in part 2, where we look at the cursed mummy being the cause of the Titanic sinking.
Bye, have a great time.